That concludes day 3 of the trial of Gregory McMichael, Travis McMichael, and William Roddy Bryan. Those are the 3 men who are charged with the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. Trial will resume tomorrow morning. So for more on this, I do want to bring in Alex Presha, who's at the courthouse in Brunswick, Georgia, our reporter on the scene, and former prosecutor Bernarda Villalona. So Alex, let me begin with you. You've been there in Brunswick covering this for us. Walk us through what you think were the main highlights in court today. What stood out to you?
Well, Terry, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of today being, first, that footage, that surveillance footage of Ahmaud Arbery walking through that empty construction site. That's been a line that the prosecution has repeated that, look, he was wandering through, a lot of people had been wandering through that neighborhood in Satilla Shores, this open construction site, but he was never seen on camera taking anything, and that's what that surveillance backed up. But also, look, out of all the video that we've seen in this trial thus far, that is the first video that showed Ahmaud Arbery just as is, a jour de vivre, if you will, him just being, him just enjoying life. It wasn't the traumatic body camera footage. It wasn't that now infamous cell phone video that William Roddy Bryan took. And so this was the jury's first chance to see him inside that courtroom just being himself, a 25-year-old going about his business in this neighborhood. Something else that stuck out to me was this testimony that we heard from the first officer, Jeff Bradenberry, who talked about interviewing Gregory McMichael immediately after this shooting, and some of the statements that McMichael had made and how that got to how he may have viewed Arbery as a threat and had some indifference towards his life. Gregory McMichael testifying, Gregory McMichael telling Bradenberry as he was responding to the scene that, as Ahmaud Arbery lay in the middle of that street, he still perceived him as a threat, even went up and, as he was turned over face down, moved his arm to make sure that Arbery didn't have a weapon concealed, even after being shot with that shotgun. Also talking about how he went into his home after he saw Ahmaud jogging down the street and grabbed his .357 Magnum because he doesn't take chances. And if he had the opportunity, he would have shot instead of Travis. Also, the response to that scene where he says that Gregory McMichael repeatedly told Travis that it was not your fault, it was not your fault, you had no choice, you had no choice. That was something that stuck out. But I think, if there's a big headline today, it's certainly the judge kind of inserting himself, right? And chastising, if you will. I mean, you called it a spanking earlier, Terry. The defense, in particular, Travis McMichael's lawyer, Sheffield, who was playing a little gamesmanship by having a big board and writing out phrases that might be thought of as advantageous for the defense. They're all phrases that made their clients look good and certainly kind of put forth their narrative, and it was written out in a way that was visible for the entire jury gallery. And so that's something that a lot of people are going to be talking about whenever this court lets out in a little bit.
Thank you, Alex. I think that's an excellent summary from the sense that we got of Ahmaud Arbery on the street, just living his life, as you say, and just minutes before the terrible final minutes of it, all the way to the judge's effort to get control of this courtroom. And on that issue, let's go to Bernarda Villalona on the judge today. As Alex just said, as we saw today, the judge reprimanded the defense today. He wants them to stop. He seems to me to have been a judge, maybe by his nature, who lets the lawyers try the case the way the lawyers want to. But it did sound like he felt he was being taken advantage of.
Exactly. Judge Walmsley definitely felt that the defense attorney, Mr. Sheffield, was definitely disrespectful to the court in not listening to his rulings, not abiding by the rules of the court and by his standing objections. And also that despite overruling or sustaining an objection, he's also showing his frustration and disrespect to the court on his face and the way that he's responding. But What he is lucky that didn't happen in this case is that Judge Wamsley didn't hold him in contempt, because there's always a possibility that a judge that finds that you are disrupting the proceedings can hold you in criminal contempt. So he's lucky that this judge did not issue such type of order in this case. What I think was more troubling in this case in regards to what Judge Wamsley had to say, Judge Wamsley called out the defense attorney and was like, "You're injecting me into this case. I'm trying to have a fair proceeding here, but if you're not listening to the rules and listening to my rulings, then a fair proceeding is not taking place here. Like, you're intentionally and purposely making these standing objections, and you're making me a part of this adversarial system in the sense of I'm being a part of this play that you're writing, where I'm constantly having to have the jury removed from the room so I can hear these objections and issue these rulings."
And they were in and out of that courtroom, up and down all day long, half a dozen times and more today, which must impact them a little bit. But I just want to follow up on what you just said. For people who, watch Hollywood courtrooms, there's always the moment, or it seems, when one of the lawyers says, I'm out of order, you're out of order, the whole system's out of order, and that's a tactic sometimes. But what you're saying is that in real life, judges aren't going to put up with that.
Yeah, it depends what judge you're in front of. Not every judge is going to stand for any disrespect to the courts. And also, if they feel that you are slowing down the proceedings or intentionally trying to deceive the proceedings and also the jurors in this case. So Judge Wamsley did put up with a lot, especially if he told you ahead of time when he started the trial. He told you a couple things. Number one, I don't want you walking around in the well. I don't want you walking around in the courtroom. Number two, do not touch anything in this courtroom, in this well, without letting me know or someone in the court know, because things can happen where it no longer functions. And those are two of the main rules that all of us learned from the very beginning of this trial. But yet this attorney is continuing with violating these types of rules. While they seem petty to the court, whichever courtroom you're in, every judge has their own rules, and you have to abide by it, because you don't want to be chastised in front of the jury, and you also don't want a judge that's going to take out his frustrations on your client.
And Bernarda, doesn't part of his frustrations, as you say, have to do with the constant delays, the constant breaks in the trial that he deals and cleans up some of the objections and the back and forth among the lawyers? How can that affect the trial? What impression might that kind of process in the trial have on a jury?
So it depends on who do you have on the jury, and how are they perceiving these delays? How are they perceiving these objections? How are they perceiving the constant going back and forth? Because remember, at the beginning of the trial, aside from opening statements, the judge gave a long instruction to the jury. And in that instruction, the judge stated that, look, the attorneys, they will be objecting. They have to object. Do not take it out on them. Also, what Judge Wamsley said is that from time to time that his voice tones may change. Please do not take it out on any of the parties here, or think that I have made a decision on either side. So the judge is also curing whatever issues may present itself with the jury, so it doesn't affect the ultimate outcome here. But like I would say, the thing is that since the jury is being kept out of the decision making of what the judge's ruling is, what happens? The jurors are making their own assumptions as to what is happening, who's in trouble, what's not being allowed to come in. Why can't I hear that? Why can't I see that? Why are they fighting back and forth? These are a million questions that human beings will have in terms of curiosity. If I'm supposed to be the fact finder, why I'm constantly being kicked out the room.
And Bernarda, those aren't the kinds of questions that the prosecution or the defense the defense might. The prosecution certainly doesn't want them to be asking those questions, because they want to keep them on track, on the narrative that the prosecution has, which is a narrative that, if it's designed and executed correctly, should mount in its convincing impact. One witness after the next, one bit of evidence after the next. But there's three defendants, three lawyers, all these objections, all these cross-examinations, recross. So how does the prosecutor, with new videos, new narratives, new evidence, how does the prosecutor keep the jury focused on the important details? It may be more in the defense interest to just kind of throw a lot of stuff in the air, hoping some of it sticks to reasonable doubt.
So you got to think with the prosecutor has the burden. They have to prove their charge or charges beyond a reasonable doubt for each defendant. So in terms of what happens in a courtroom, a good trial attorney, an excellent trial attorney, and an excellent prosecutor will have control of that courtroom in terms of they should be able to think 5 steps ahead of what the defense is going. Where are they going? Why are they going to object? What are they going to say about these objections? And then tailor how they're going to address this case and what's going to be my redirect if I decide to redirect, what those questions are going to be. But in terms of this prosecutor, how she's keeping herself together. So you can't noticeably see that she is frustrated. As you can see, she just keeps on going. Don't let it faze you at all. Because in the end, it's like, look, the jury's going to look at you because you represent the state of Georgia. You represent the jurors as well as members of the state of Georgia. So you need to have control of this courtroom. Keep with your narrative. Don't change your narrative because you don't want to be flip-flopping back and forth. You have a theory, you have a narrative, stick through it, and you're doing it exactly when you're redirecting these witnesses. And in the end, doing closing arguments, you're going to tell this jury and direct this jury about the evidence that they put forward to mete out each charge beyond a reasonable doubt and why they should find the defendants guilty in this case. You get the last word, prosecutor.
Well, Bernarda, as I listen to you today, if I'm ever in trouble, I'm going to give you a call. I hope I don't have to, but I really appreciate your clarity on that. Let me go back to the scene and Alex Presha there in Brunswick, Georgia. So Ahmaud Arbery's mother has been in court for much of this trial. Have you heard anything, from the Arbery family, how they're feeling these days during the proceedings?
Well, Terry, they've been relatively quiet today. Now, behind me, you can see in the distance, reporters have gathered on the steps of the courthouse. I'm looking at the monitor right here. We see that while the jury has been dismissed for the day, there are still people inside that courtroom. The lawyers are all there, the defendants are all there, and so are the people in the gallery. So we're expecting them to file out in a matter of minutes, and we'll check back in because usually one member of the family speaks in the evening, just kind of surmising what's happened throughout the day. But I can tell you that, look, yesterday there was visible frustration from both of Ahmaud's parents, Marcus Arbery and Wanda Cooper Jones. His mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, saying pretty bluntly that, look, all of these motions, all of these sidebars to her are just delays. And yes, they know that the wheels of justice often turn slow, but this to them has been a snail's pace, and they believe that a lot of these delays are unnecessary. And so there is a feeling of frustration. There has been an encampment of Arbery's supporters. You can probably see a couple of those tents there in the distance. They've been gathering daily, and we've heard chants time and time again throughout the day. It hasn't been a lot, but they're there. And in our interactions with them as well, there is this sense of, well, this courtroom gamesmanship is just slowing down what they want, and they would say that they want justice.
Absolutely. That is the nature of the justice system, though, as you say, it grinds exceedingly slow. So, Alex, what can we expect as trial resumes tomorrow?
Well, Terry, so the first thing, and you probably noted this as well, that questioning of investigator Marcy went a lot longer than I think both sides expected, with the numerous breaks, also just the questioning, the re-examination back and forth. And so we were supposed to hear from Officer Roderick Nohilly today. That's going to happen tomorrow. I'm guessing probably first thing or slightly thereafter when we begin, and court is back in session at 9 a.m.
All right, Alex Presha on the scene there. We appreciate you every day. And former prosecutor Bernarda Villalona, thank you very much for your help throughout the day.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.